Right now, we are living in the golden age of Star Trek fan fiction. Basically, you can do a search on YouTube for Star Trek, and you will find hours and hours and hours of fan-generated content. And it ranges in terms of quality. There are some things that are very good, which we're going to talk about a bit today, and other things that they're not as good, but if you really need your Captain Kirk fix, you can still get it from these projects. What's great about these projects is that they're passion projects. A lot of them are either Kickstarter funded, sometimes they're even just personally funded projects. They have produced some truly awesome things. For example, apparently now in Georgia, there is a full set recreated of the Enterprise deck from the original series using the original blueprints. They're even building out other sets in the same layout that they were done in the original, what was known as Stage 9. And that is for a show called Star Trek Continues. Now, quite honestly, if you want to skip to it and just check this out for yourself, I highly, highly recommend Star Trek Continues. It is the best of these shows that I have found. They have a pretty stunning Captain Kirk. The guy, particularly for the medium shots where he's not so close to the camera, you would almost think that it was somehow footage of Bill Shatner from back in the day. He really, not just his facial features, but his physique. Of course, the costume is spot on, and the sets are done so well. Outside of all that, they take particular care with the lighting on that show in particular. It's like they've watched old episodes and they've tried to recreate the exact same lighting setups, and it just comes off amazing. For any fans of Mythbusters, Grant Imahara plays Sulu, and there's something about these shows. As a matter of fact, here's what I'm going to recommend to you. Don't jump into that show first. Do yourself a favor and watch one of the other ones first. Now, one of the other ones I would recommend is, there's one at a channel called Star Trek, I believe it's Star Trek New Voyages or Star Trek The New Voyages. And if you go to that channel, you'll see they have a ton of content created there. They basically had their New Voyages show, and then they created another one called Phase 2. Now, that production is not quite as sharp as the Star Trek Continues production. They do have a recreation of the bridge that looks pretty good. Costumes are not quite as good. Acting talent, definitely not as good. That is more like, almost like if you would imagine going to a community theater or having a community theater production of Star Trek. That's kind of more what Star Trek New Voyages and Star Trek Phase 2 is like. So if you're really going to do this experiment, because this is kind of how I went through it, I watched one of those first, and even though it was goofy, I kind of sat myself through it, got through an episode, and by the end I was like, wow, there was something that was kind of enjoyable about the story. Yes, some of the acting, some of it is just flat out bad. But the sets look decent, the story was kind of cool. They're using the original Star Trek music, which apparently CBS is allowing fan productions to do as long as they don't make money off that content, which is kind of curious because some of those are running ads. But at least for the Star Trek Continues show, that one is being done. The first episode was produced by the star. Man, I wish I could bring up his last name is just so hard for me to pronounce, but here, I'll bring up a picture of him right here. I know his name is Vic. And apparently I think he independently produced the first episode, and since they've done a Kickstarter to produce episodes 2 through 5, they keep expanding on the set. They even went to, I believe, at the Houston Space Center. That's where the Galileo Shuttle from the original show, it was the shuttle that was used only in 3 episodes of the original Star Trek. It was left outside, so it deteriorated really badly. Some fans got together, restored it, and now it is at the Houston Space Center. And apparently, Star Trek Continues went there to shoot a scene with the actual shuttle, which is really cool. And that's something that's fun about both of these series that I've mentioned so far, is they will feature cameos by other actors, sometimes in the Star Trek universe, sometimes in other universes. For example, Lou Ferrigno shows up in one. Aaron Gray from Buck Rogers shows up in one. Those are on the Star Trek Continues side. And then for the New Voyages Phase 2, they've actually had both the actors that play Chekhov and Sulu appear on episodes in that series, which is really exciting and probably a cool way to step your foot into this if you want to. While I'm talking about that, there is another series I have to mention called Star Trek Renegades. And Renegades is kind of made almost like more like a Star Trek movie. And as a matter of fact, that same crew did another one called, I think, Of God and Men, if I'm remembering right, Star Trek of God and Men. And both of those films feature the actor that plays Chekhov. Star Trek Renegades also has Tim Russ, who played Tuvok on Voyager. Edward Furlong, the kid from Terminator 2, is in it. There's a bunch of different sci-fi actors that you're going to recognize. Now, it's strange because those, being a bit more like films, kind of shoot for even higher reaches in terms of special effects and story. And on a large part, they make the mark, but sometimes the camera work is not the best, the lighting is not the best, the acting performances kind of weave in and out, where some of them are really good, some of them are really bad. But still, I think it's worth your time, particularly if you're a Star Trek fan of kind of some of the newer stuff. Then I highly recommend Renegades. The short story is it's about a renegade crew. Almost, if you've seen the new sci-fi series Dark Matter, kind of feels a bit like that, where it's a crew of kind of rough and tumble types that have been put together, and Starfleet has them kind of doing unofficial missions. So, a lot of people have asked about my Star Trek toys in the background, and it just kind of got me going. I started doing some YouTube searches, and I bumped into, there are so many different Star Trek shows. A lot of them are just using green screen, and it's not done really great, and those I can only watch for a couple minutes. There are some that even go as far as being entirely different ships with entirely different crews, and those are kind of cool in their own way. But in particular, if you're going to try this thing out, I really highly recommend Star Trek The New Voyages, Star Trek Phase 2, that's kind of at the lower end. Star Trek Continues, almost a must. I really think that you should check it out just to see the production quality, just to see what could be done with a good crew of talented actors, a very good director of photography, and very good lighting people using an amazing set. I would love to visit that set someday. It's so cool. And then if you get through all that and you feel like taking on a bigger Star Trek adventure, check out Star Trek of Gods and Men, and also Star Trek Renegades, and I think you will enjoy that. So you all can get your Captain Kirk fix without having to deal with Bill Shatner. He's just been historically known as being not the nicest guy. I hope you all are having a great week. Thanks for joining me on this version of Geek and Dorks. I guess it's not really a review, kind of. It's just an interesting time for these properties, so I wanted to bring them to your attention. And even Renegades right now, I think their Kickstarter is probably going to be done by the time this is posted, but they're going to do a subsequent Kickstarter for their post-production. So if you want to get in on helping these series, you can. I'm pretty sure that Star Trek Continues is doing some type of fundraising event. They've been making shows pretty regularly, about 2 a year. So if you fall in love with one of these shows, you can kind of follow along and hopefully become a part of it yourself and help them get to their next episode. Hope you're having an awesome day. Catch you on the next show on the Geek and Dorks channel. Take care.